Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. I have a question for you. Is homeschooling really all that different from school? Well, if you visited my channel before, you're going to know what my answer to that is. If you haven't, you're going to find out today because I'm going to give a bit of a more detailed comparison between the two than I ever have before. School and homeschool. To someone on the outside looking in, upon hearing the word homeschool, they very likely will get the idea that a homeschool looks just like what a school would look like, except it's happening within the confines of the home. And who can blame them from the name itself? Homeschooling. This is why so many homeschoolers, myself included, feel that it's not really a great name for what we do, but it's something that we have gotten so used to using, and it's something that people are just used to hearing that out of habit, that is what we continue to call it. But the fact of the matter is that school and homeschool are really two completely different things. And I do bring this up over and over again here on my channel, but today I wanted to give a more detailed side-by-side comparison between some things that are done in public school and the way those same things are approached in a homeschool, just to give some people who might not understand what the difference is a better idea of how unlike the two of them really are. So first of all, let's start with curriculum. In a public school, the curriculum is mandated by the state. In a homeschool, the curriculum is chosen by the parents, often with input from their own children. So rather than having someone else telling them what curriculum needs to be used or what needs to be taught or how it needs to be taught, homeschooling parents have the final say. In a public school, textbook learning is instituted throughout every major subject. And I think that's something that most people realize. Textbooks are the way to learn in a public school setting. Not so in homeschooling, though. Yes, traditional textbooks might be used, but learning is approached in many different ways, and that can also include following interests or even learning from life. Again, as with the curriculum, and this is included in the curriculum, it is up to the discretion of the parents. In a public school setting, some subjects are given more weight than others, and I think we realize that. Very often the arts tend to get pushed to the side, especially in those schools that don't have as much funding as the bigger schools. But in homeschooling, children are encouraged to pursue things that interest them the most. The arts and other interests are given equal footing as all other subject areas. In a traditional school setting, children are expected to learn at exactly the same pace in exactly the same way. In a homeschool, individuality is embraced and celebrated. And I also have to say that it is the best supported because the curriculum is tailored to meet the needs of the student. They can't really do that in a public school setting where they have 20 or 30 students in one class. So yes, it does make it much easier to make the curriculum fit the child when it comes to homeschooling. In a traditional school setting, children not learning at the same pace or in the same way will very often be pulled out of class and put into special education classes. And I have to say, speaking from experience, I had a child who was pulled out and put in classes, special education learning support classes, is that it is a stigma that he carried with him for the rest of his life because he always thought that he was stupid simply because he learned differently. But in a homeschool, children can learn at their own pace and they can learn in a way that meets their needs. Not all kids are cut out to learn in a classroom setting. Some kids need to be moving. Some kids need to be working with their hands. And homeschooling embraces that, and again, it supports it. In a traditional school setting, school starts early in the morning and ends mid-afternoon. It can take anywhere from 6 to 8 hours a day, depending on after-school activities. Sometimes, I hate to say it, even longer than that. But a homeschool starts and ends whenever the family chooses. School can last maybe 2 to 3 hours a day, even less for unschoolers. But again, it is something that is completely at the discretion of the homeschooling family. And I also have to add that even if a homeschool day takes as long as a traditional school day, which it does not often happen, the children are still at least with their families during that time, and they are not separated from them for the bulk of the day. In a public school or traditional school setting, there are hours and hours of homework after school is over for the day. And in homeschool, well, I guess all of their work could technically be homework because they're doing it at home. But again, they do have more time with the family because homework will take children away from the time that they could be spending with their family, the quality time of doing things with their family. Children who are spending hours on homework after being in school for 7 hours a day, that is just a more extensive time that they are away from the people who love them and who they need to be around the most. In a traditional school setting, the school year runs either from August to May or September to June. And in a homeschool, the family decides which part of the calendar year will be dedicated to homeschooling. A lot of homeschooling families still follow the school schedule, maybe because sometimes they might have other children who are in a traditional school. Sometimes it might be because they know that their children would like to be with their friends who are off over the summer vacation. But then again, there are other homeschooling families who school year round. There are some who start their new year in January. This is something that you're going to hear over and over again. It is up to the discretion of the parents. In a traditional school setting, parents must seek permission for family educational field trips, something that always irked me. I remember years ago when my oldest son was graduating from boot camp and AIT, and we were going to drive to Missouri from Pennsylvania to go watch him graduate. And I had one child who was still in public school. The rest of them were being homeschooled. And I was so irked that I actually had to send in a request for her to take an educational field trip to go watch her brother graduate. And I think that that is just one of the many areas that schools usurp parental authority. And I have talked about that many times. But in a homeschool, the family has complete autonomy over their own children, as it should be. And so there's no need to worry about unexcused absences or denials of requests for time off for family vacations. I think it's ridiculous that parents even have to ask for that in the first place. So in a traditional school setting, subjects begin and end with the ringing of the bell, and there's no leeway. You have to do it that way. In a homeschool, children can spend as long or as little on an assignment as they need to. They don't need to just stop at the drop of a hat and move on to something completely unrelated to it. And the last thing that I'm going to compare between the two is that in a traditional school setting, children learn in a class with 20 to 30 other children the same age as they are. And in a homeschool, children interact with people in the community of all ages, races, ethnicities, income brackets, and beliefs. And this is a biggie because how many times have you heard the idea of socialization brought up when it comes to homeschooling? You know, that homeschooled children are not going to be properly socialized. But is that really the case? A child who is confined to a building with a bunch of other children, the same children every single day, who are all the same age as they are and usually live around the same area that they do. How is that better socialization than a child who is at home, but, and I think this is important, not always at home? I think a lot of people think that homeschooled children never leave their houses. That's not true. Homeschool kids are out and about all the time, whether by themselves, with their parents. They are out being around different people all the time, not just people that they're related to, not the same people every single day, not all people of the same ages. There is variety, and they also get to see people in the natural area of their lives, not a simulated setting of just sitting in a classroom all day. So I hope that this gave you some ideas of the differences between homeschooling and traditional or public school, because I think that it's something that is going to help a lot of parents who aren't really sure what homeschooling is all about and aren't really sure how much of a benefit that it might be. I just want to encourage you that the best thing that we ever did as a family was to start homeschooling. Anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one over on Instagram because YouTube disabled my comments. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And today I'd like to give a shout out to one of my newest patrons, Ashley. Ashley, thank you so much for becoming a patron. I appreciate your support more than you know, and I am so glad that you have been enjoying my videos, and I hope everyone has a great day.